Lebanon had already been facing an economic collapse when a massive series of explosions rocked the Beirut port earlier this month. At least 177 people were killed and over 6,000 more wounded in the blast, which were caused when a stockpile of ammonium nitrate that had been stored at the port ignited. The Lebanese people immediately took to the streets in anger, and the government resigned. And yet, the terror group Hezbollah, which many believe may have had some role in storing that ammonium nitrate, remains the most powerful force in Lebanon. A little while back, we traveled to the Israel-Lebanon border to learn more about Hezbollah's stranglehold on that country. Take a look. Well, Avi, we are still here on the Lebanon border in the northernmost part of Israel. We talked earlier about the lack of really a Lebanese government presence, it seems, here in southern Lebanon. It seems that Hezbollah, in many ways, reigns supreme. How did that happen?
It happened in the most simple way, and this is the bully way. Remember, Hezbollah, established by the Iranians in the beginning of the 80s, massively armed by the Iranians. The excuse was the fight against Israel. When the Hezbollah was demanded by the Lebanese government to disarm itself, his answer was, don't you dare touching this weapon. This is the weapon of the resistance, meaning allegedly continuing the fight against Israel. And this is basically how Hezbollah kidnapped Lebanon from within. When the time and the circumstances called for, Hezbollah was using this power in order to dictate its political will on the Lebanese government, and to be more accurate, to dictate the Iranians' will.
So Hezbollah, Avi, is the big bully here, the main power source in southern Lebanon. But it's interesting to me because the UN is here as well. We're in a landscape right now where we're standing, where we see a UN presence. Tell us a little bit about the differences in southern Lebanon that we see right in front of us here.
Well, Eric, if you look right in front of you, you could see three symbols that actually tells the story of Lebanon for clearly the last 20 years, if not more. You see the United Nations military post, and you see the vehicle of the United Nations. Right. Little bit beyond that, you could see the Lebanese flag. Mm-hmm. There is a Lebanese military base. Next to that, you see the border with Israel. And if you look all the way to the left-hand side, you could see this tower standing there. This is a tower very close to the Israeli border on the Lebanese side that established by the Hezbollah, disguised as an environmental watching tower. So you have here three symbols that actually tells the story of Lebanon's struggle for sovereignty. Yeah. The UN is here because Lebanese government failed to exercise their sovereignty. Reminding you, in 2006, the Israeli-Hezbollah war that lasted 33 days. Right. Following that war, United Nations Security Council 1701 ordered the deployment of Lebanese army and United Nations units all the way down to the border with Israel. That's the reason why you see today United Nations deployment here. That's the reason why you see today deployment of the Lebanese army as well. But the major factor on the ground as of now still remain the Hezbollah. The watchtower is a great example for that.
That's stunning, Avi. We were discussing that Hezbollah has this watchtower right on Israel's border, looking out over Israel. Hezbollah, this militant terrorist army. Unbelievable. And this isn't the only one of these towers, Avi. As you and I were driving along here along the Lebanon border, we saw several of these Hezbollah towers dotting Israel's border in southern Lebanon, looking out over Israeli communities like Metula, where we've been today. And the most interesting part about it, in many ways, the UN, as you said, Avi, a UN base is right next to this Hezbollah tower. What is the UN doing here?
Excellent question. The UN is monitoring the situation on the ground, making sure, allegedly, that the instructions of 1701 Security Council resolution will be kept. One of the most important instructions is that the Hezbollah will be forbidden to have a formal open presence in the area stretching between the Israeli-Lebanese border up something like 40 kilometers. That is not the situation on the ground. The Hezbollah is everywhere.